You're listening to Chasms of the Mind, a show where I, Chas Bruns, ask my guests random questions about life. Enjoy. This episode is proudly brought to you by Paddy Murphy's Irish Pub in Bangor, Maine. For a taste of Ireland and Maine, make sure to visit Paddy Murphy's. So, welcome everyone to podcast number 3 with my very talented guest, Ben Sprague. Ben, go ahead and tell everybody who doesn't know who you are. I mean, I don't know, most people know who you are, but for those that don't, go ahead and give them your background.
Okay, well, I think it starts in second grade when you and I were in the same math class together at Vine Street School. Man. Do you remember that?
You know what's funny? I was talking to Jana about that the other day, and Ian too, you know, the old stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything earlier than like age 10, I think. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if it's memories my parents have told me, you know?
Yeah.
And I take that back. I do have some memories. I remember getting in first grade, Vance Lupus. You remember Vance?
Yep.
He and I took some magnifying glasses and burnt some paper behind a dumpster. And of course, I was the one that got blamed for it.
Sure.
Vance was totally involved. But
yeah.
I don't think we got suspended. I don't know if they suspend you in first grade, but that's one memory I do have. But second grade math class, huh?
Yeah, that's right around the corner here at Vine Street School.
No kidding. Yeah. Good old Vine Street.
Yeah. No, I grew up in Bangor here and very proud to be involved with City Council now, which I think is how most people know me today. I work at a day job and I've got a family, and we can go down any path you want in this conversation. Yeah. But you, I'm just really happy to be back in my hometown, and being involved with things here has just been great.
Well, that was a very humble way to start. I kind of wanted you to brag about yourself so that people know how cool you are. Ben went to Harvard, correct?
That's correct.
So I wanted you to mention that. You were also mayor, which I know it's not really an elected position. It's more of an appointed position. And you don't really have any power, right? You're just like a seat.
Yeah, it's like first among equals. So the mayor in Bangor is chosen by the city council each year. So there's 9 city councilors in Bangor. And each year they choose who gets to be the mayor. And it's nice, it's fun. You get a little bit of an extra platform, and maybe you get to lead the agenda a little bit more so than just as a regular city councilor. But it's not like one of these other big cities where mayor's really a full-time job.
It's still pretty cool though. Jana, who I had on in episode 2, I mentioned to her that you had been the mayor, because you're not currently, right?
No, I'm just a regular city councilor.
Yeah, but I mentioned that you were the mayor of Bangor, and she goes, "Oh my God, like that's incredible." So people think that's pretty cool, even though it's
it is fun. I mean, it's special, and it brings me a lot of pride to be a city councilor and I've been the mayor twice of Bangor, and it's been great. I love it.
Yeah, I wanted to tell this story too, which I don't even know if you'll remember this, but I think it speaks to your character a lot, and I want to give you props here. When I don't remember if it was Kabang or West Market Festival I was doing, but I wanted to give you a Maine home shirt. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you were like, "No, I'm sorry, I can't." And I was like, "Okay." And you left, and I looked at John Gillis. I was like, "Why can't he take a free shirt from me?" He's like, "Dude, he's a politician. It's considered a bribe. Like, he can't do it." And if you, like me in my mind, I'm like, a $10 shirt, like a guy I've known since second grade, he can't do it. But there you go, everybody who's watching. That is the type of guy that Ben is, that he was worried about even taking a free $10 t-shirt gift.
Yeah, so. Well, you got to be careful with those things. And but I remember, because I graduated from Bangor High School in 2002, and then I spent 9 years in the Boston area for college and then afterwards. And I remember being in Boston and seeing what you guys and Tim and Josh and everybody was doing, Meg and others were doing with Kabang and the West Market Festival before that. And I just remember thinking, like, Bangor is becoming a cool place again. And, maybe I could move back. And I mean, the emphasis is really on jobs and letting people or encouraging people to have a career here and get settled down, but lifestyle and social scene and things to do matters a lot too. And Bangor has really come a long way with regard to those in the last 10 to 15 years. And you've been a part of that too.
I'll say it again. You've been very important in everything we've done along the way, even just silly things like the house that we're recording in now. Ben has helped me with different things throughout the city. There's a local grocery store where bums would come and put their shopping carts all around the yard. And I was talking from the company to the city council, everybody being like, "It's making the neighborhood look horrible." Ben somehow got it taken care of. There's no more shopping carts in my yard.
It wasn't just me, but I appreciate the kind words. I mean,
yes, but you've always been there from West Market to Kabang, helping and bettering the city. And actually, to rewind, because I was supposed to ask you this after you were talking about your accolades. How influential were your parents in what you became and influencing your life in terms of, like, go to college and whatnot? Because for me personally, I did pre-med first and then graduated at CSUN for film. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to drop out every year. And my dad was like, "No, you need that college degree, do it." And I am glad I have it. But looking back, I think I would have taken that time and that money and opened a business. Yeah. So once again, I know this is a loaded question. I'll start with your parents, but your parents' influence on you, and then what do you think about college after having gone to, in my opinion, the best school in the world?
Yeah.
Do you still agree with it? So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my parents, I owe them the world. And now I have kids of my own, and I'm observing my parents and parenting in general through a different perspective of now parenting my own kids. And believe me, I have this whole additional appreciation for my parents, seeing how hard it is to raise a child. And my parents really got me. I mean, they loved me unconditionally, which I think is the most important thing. So many problems in the world and people in their development and challenges they have. A lot can be not universally, but a lot can be traced back to just needing somebody to love them unconditionally. And my parents, both of them, were absolutely that. I grew up in a very stable, loving home, and they definitely had me on the path to success from a young age. And it's a great privilege to grow up that way.
Yeah, people underestimate how important that is. Like, whether you're in poverty or you're one of the richest families on the planet, if your parents are a-holes, you're going to kind of have a tough time with life. And I think, can't remember who it was, but the other day they were saying that the most important years are age 1 to 7, and whatever happens at that time will make who you are and your personality the rest of your life. So just to clarify for your parents here, Ben is saying he went to Harvard because you were good parents. So good
That's
job.
right. Yeah. But now, I mean, we try to have that same loving home for our kids at home. And there was actually a night I was driving home from something, and it was a late concert night, and it was like 10 p.m. And it's going to sound like I'm shaming people, but I remember seeing people smoking cigarettes and pushing baby strollers, listening to the concerts at 10 o'clock at night. And I remember thinking, how is that child possibly going to be able to grow up and have all the same opportunities that my kids have had, who have been home in bed for 3 hours now and got tucked in and a story read to them, and
are going to school on time and eating their breakfast.
Eating healthy foods for the most part, not always, but I don't know. So much of it is that early education and parenting, and I feel like there should be parenting classes or something, because even my wife and I, who I think we're doing it okay. I remember being home with our firstborn and thinking, the hospital just let us leave with this child. Like, they just let anybody do this.
Just a living being.
Why does this happen? But honestly, my kids, I just want them to do something that makes them happy and hopefully makes the world a better place. I mean, that's a little cliche, but I just want them to be fulfilled, but also know that they have it pretty good right now as kids, and as did I growing up. And when you have all these opportunities, there's a responsibility to use your skills to hopefully make a positive difference. And I'd like to think that's what I've done, but
and then later in life, did they care if you went to school, where you went to school? Like, how was that choice made? I'm sure you applied to a few schools, right?
Yeah, they were always encouraging. They always gave me enough space to kind of do my own thing and figure it out. And I think they're proud of how I ended up, and happy that I ended up moving back to Bangor too, but they never really pressured me overtly. I think going to college was always an unsaid thing that was going to be part of my plan.
Well, also you have a different brain than me. You have a math brain. I have more of an art brain. So for me, I was just like, school's driving me nuts. And also film and TV, like, for me, it's just more advantageous to go work on a show than go to film school for 4 years. But if I was going to be doctor, lawyer, accountant, work at a bank like you do, then yes, I don't want to be misconstrued here. If anybody's listening, go to college. I'm not saying don't go to college. Go to college. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up about Harvard, because I even questioned whether I was going to ask him, like, that sounds so, did you go to Harvard? I was listening to an interview with Conan O'Brien, who also went to Harvard. And he was saying that after a while, it gets annoying because people do that too. Like, oh, you're so important. You went to Harvard. So that being said, are you happy you went there? Would you do it again? Your kids, are you planning for them to be Ivy League, or what are you going to say for
No,
advice?
I don't have any plan for them. I hope that they'll go to college. I mean, who knows what college will be like at that point and how much it will cost. And I think
cost is the big thing. Gosh.
I mean, I think there's this really healthy push towards trade schools and community college, and I always feel like people don't take me seriously when I say that, because it's hard to go to Harvard and have that attitude and not come across kind of smug about it. But Eastern Maine Community College, for example, right in this community, you can go for a fraction of the cost, if not free, through financial aid and scholarships and different things. And you can get a really good education in a trade and come out and make good money.
Yeah, I actually, when I got done with the job, and it was right when I moved back from New York, and I went to Penobscot Theater and ran into my friend Orson, who was a professional carpenter. And it was like the day I'd quit my other job, and I said, hey man, like, do you need any help? And he's like, yeah, a guy quit yesterday, come on in. So I apprenticed with him for a year, and I think he paid me like 12 to $15 an hour or something like that, which was already great, right? But then after a year, I branched off and did my own carpentry and was making $30 to $35 an hour, and I was kind of just blown away because my whole life, whether I was in LA or New York, working acting gigs or whatever, bartending to get by, I was like, oh, as a skilled tradesman, I can make $35 an hour. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And people forget that.
Yeah. And you can get a 2-year degree from the community college and then transfer in as a junior to the University of Maine or Husson right now. It sounds like I'm like on a soapbox for Eastern Maine Community College right now.
Good.
Like pitching their program.
Honestly, this whole episode is going to be pro Bangor. I think people knew that. Yeah, at the end of the day, as cliches, I said this to Jana, the meaning of life is to be happy. Yeah. Right. So when I'm talking negative about school, it's not that if somebody's happy going to school, like, there are people that's their whole thing. Like they want to go to grad school. They want to go to school forever, be masters and whatnot. Yeah. It's more that I see, like my own siblings have, I won't say the exact amount because I get mad, but they have a lot of school debt. Yeah. Right. And so when I think about even just the debt I have on my own, having worked through school and paid it off as I was in school, I can't imagine having school debt on top of that. Like, it's really a crippling, tough thing. So that's kind of more where I'm coming from.
I feel like society is shifting a bit on that because people have so much debt, and you can get a good education for less. And I mean, obviously, I can't. This is what people will say. It's kind of smug. A Harvard degree is obviously worth a lot in the workforce, in the marketplace. Yeah. A community college degree has sometimes been looked down upon, but I feel like that attitude is changing a bit, and that will be perceived more valuably over time. Yeah, I hope so. Anyways.
To rewind for a second too, because you're talking about kids, something that I was talking to Ian Curlis about that we didn't film the podcast. How different it is to be alive today. And I touched on it with Jana's movie. Jana's movie, we went to high school with Jana, and it's about being in high school in the modern times with cell phones and like Snapchat and pictures and all the stuff that can happen with that. For your children, are you going to try to keep them from like having a cell phone in their hand every day, using those things? I personally am for it. I think that's the way the world's going, and they should be on top of it. But the thing that I talked about with Ian was when my brother and I were little, when the JCPenney catalogs would come in the mail, we'd be excited to like go outside and sneak behind my dad's shed and look at the girls in the lingerie, right? And that was like what was bad for us, was to see women in lingerie in a JCPenney catalog.
And how innocent that seems now.
Yeah. So if you're a 4 or 5 year old now and you got an iPad and mom and dad are in the kitchen, some of the stuff you can Google and see instantly. So as a parent, because I don't have kids yet, so I'm asking you as one of my friends that has them, what are you going to do? Because you can't really police it. Even if you wanted to stop them, Ben, they're going to see it. So
there's no way to there's no way to prevent them from engaging with different forms of technology. And like you said, I think there are some super positives. Like our 5-year-old and 3-year-old now can navigate their way around an iPhone. Yeah. They can figure out how to find stations on the TV. They're doing these games on computers that we had when we were young, but they were a much more simple version of even games today. But they learn a lot of literacy and numbers and facts about the world, and that's all really positive. Yeah. What I worry about more, and I worry about this with myself too, and people older than us, is just this seismic shift that's happened with how our brains work being on these devices all the time. Yeah. Because you don't need to think the same way. Not only do you not need to think critically about things because you can just Google things. People are also thinking all the time about how is this going to be perceived on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever else. And people are living experiences almost like vicariously through their social media presence to just see how is this going to play on social media. People are not just thinking for themselves without needing to then immediately express that thought on social media. Yeah. And that's in the history of humanity, that's a seismic shift that we're going through just in the last 20 years since all this stuff started to become more prevalent. And that worries me a lot because I feel like my brain sometimes is falling apart because of just the different, I'm not working my mind in the same way that I used to. And I don't like it. And it is a million conveniences and so many special things. And we can have this conversation and many people can listen to it because of all this technology. Yeah. But at what cost to our human development through all these changes?
I don't know who said this quote, but it's the comparison is a thief of joy quote. And I can't agree with that anymore. Like that is, anytime I'm sad lately, it's because I'm looking at somebody's Instagram going, oh man, like they're in Mexico doing this cool thing and that's so amazing, which can be good if it motivates you, right? And gets you to do better things with your life. But most time it doesn't. Most time people just look at that stuff and they're like look what Ben's doing. Ben's mayor. I can't believe Ben's mayor and I'm home watching Netflix, you know? And it's when, like you said, in human history, there was always that kind of high school mentality, whether in high school, college, comparing yourself to your peers. But then eventually you'd graduate from that and get in the real world, and that was the end. Now, like you said, even my own grandmother's on Facebook, and I don't know if she's comparing herself to her friends, but I'm sure she is. Sure. You know, like, oh, she gets to go out more often than I go out, or she's hanging out with her grandkids more often. It's the same thing.
How could you not? There's lots of studies out there, and especially with older people, actually, that correlate depression with the amount of time you spend on Facebook. And the more you scroll through, I feel the same way at night when I should actually be going to sleep, or let alone reading a book or something, like something substantive. I just scroll through Facebook, and then you feel like an erosion somehow in your spirit. It can be depressing.
So what we're saying, if you're listening to this podcast, turn it off immediately.
Yeah,
no, I don't mean to vilify technology. Obviously, it's amazing, and this is the next step in human evolution, and it needs to happen, and we can't stop. Even if you and I hated it, and we're like, no, once again, it's going to happen. Your kids are going to have an iPhone, or whatever's coming next. But it literally will rewire your brain. We're talking about math class, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I can do math anymore because I just use my phone every time. Like if I had to stop and be like 8 times 8 plus 32, I'd be like, what? You know?
Yeah.
So
I feel the same way, and I don't know how you get around that because it's so ubiquitous throughout society now. I mean, our oldest is 5 years old, and he's not on social media or anything, but he can get it. I feel like he can get attached to screens really easily with it. With the flip side of that is my whole political base image has been so cultivated through Facebook, especially. I've got a great Facebook page, and the people I engage with on there who follow my page, I love them, and I get good feedback and support and suggestions. But I've been able to grow my image and my name recognition through, I think, effective social media. And I've also been able to use it, probably more importantly, to keep people informed about what's going on and to give updates that people need to know. So, I mean, I am super pro social media. I don't want that to be confusing, but I do wonder what is happening to our brains.
Well, also, even if it is just an addiction, right? It's probably one of the best addictions you can have. Like, at least you and I aren't shooting heroin in the back alley. You know, like if you and I are in bed, scrolling through our Instagram at 2 in the morning, so be it.
But they say there's that little dopamine rush that is similar from getting likes and comments and shares.
You know, sometimes if you're scrolling, this is going to make me sound awful, but if you scroll for long enough, you run out, right? Facebook's like, refresh your feed, and I will sometimes just keep refreshing it and seeing the same memes over and over again. I'm like, okay, Chaz, you've been seeing this for 10 minutes. You know there's nothing new. It's 4 in the morning. None of your friends have posted anything. Go to bed.
Facebook should put a go to bed notice at the bottom of the feed.
They did release something, and I haven't looked at it yet, but I think it's an app that gets added to your phone that'll tell you how much screen time you've used. I don't know if that was Apple or Facebook.
I have that on my iPhone now. It came with the latest update, and I hate it because every single Sunday morning I hit an update, and it's like such and such amount of time down or up 22% from last week, and I just think, oh my god, this is terrible.
It's the same feeling I get when you're watching Netflix, and it's like, are you still watching? And that's their way of saying, you've seen like 4 hours worth of television. Are you alive still? Have you passed out on your couch? Yeah. But once again, there's no stopping it. I think, and I'll go on record saying this too, if they could implant internet in my brain, I'd do it.
Yeah.
You know, I think ultimately we're headed in that direction. I don't want to say cyborg, but something along those lines.
Yeah, your brain will be meshed with the technology.
I'm wearing contacts. You've got glasses on your face. We're using technology right now.
Yeah.
Like, granted, this is an older form of a watch, but I've also got the watch in my pocket now. Like, Google has made us almost cyborgs in a way.
Yeah. Well, the technology, it does this to us because we're all human beings, and we're subject to whether it's temptation or greed or jealousy, and it would play out those very human emotions through our interactions with technology. So until humans become perfect, which is never going to happen, the technology is always going to enhance the good in us, but also the bad in us as well. And I don't know. It's just never going to change. The technology, the kids growing up now will never have known a period. Like you and I at least remember a time before logging into AOL and having the modem scratching sound and having to walk across the floor to actually answer a phone that's attached to a cord on the wall. And all the kids after us that aren't going to have remember that or experience that.
You know what's funny about that too is when the movie The Matrix came out, it blew my mind, right? To think about that concept of maybe we're in a video game, so to speak, or whatever, because we knew life before that. If you're born now and all you've ever known is this, I can't even imagine how they view reality. They must think that this is just one dimension out of many, which maybe it is.
Yeah,
you know?
But I mean, you can be in touch with virtually any person you've ever met, though, instantly.
Yeah. How weird is that?
Yeah. Any person from any context in your life, high school, college, work, travel, anybody you've ever met and had a relationship with in any form, you can send a message to them right now.
Yeah.
That's the only time in human history that's ever been possible.
I haven't started doing it yet because you're only the third guest. Which, by the way, to rewind, I should have had Ben be the first guest because the first podcast I ever went on was Ben's podcast, the Maine show, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So we wanted to plug that for you. Go check out Ben's podcast if you like what he's saying now. He's got over 150 episodes.
Yeah, like 120 or so. Yeah.
So I was gonna say I haven't started doing it yet because this is just the third episode. But I was gonna try to do a live stream of these conversations. So think about that somebody can sit and listen to us live as we're having this.
Yeah.
Right. Like when I was a little kid, if I wanted to go see John Gillis, I had to get on my bike and ride to his house.
Yeah.
Or pick up and call his mom and say, "Hey, is John there? I'm gonna be there in 15 minutes. Make sure he's there."
Yeah.
You know?
And that is an earthquake for traditional media, because one of the big changes since I started in city council, when I started in 2011, almost every meeting we had, at least one or two of the local TV stations was there. The BDN was there. We had this other little hometown paper that was also there.
Yeah.
Now we have a lot of meetings that no media even covers because the metrics and the dollars of media have changed so much. Yeah. But at the same time, I can use Facebook to basically create my own media channel with it. Yeah. Certainly through podcasting, but I can do a Facebook Live video and just talk about what we're working on in city council. Yeah. And it's basically a local news report.
I'm not going to lie, I felt bad for you when you first got elected because I was like, wow, Ben's elected in the age of social media. So I would see people posting things on your wall and tagging you and things, and I myself did it too. And one day I was like, oh, I should probably stop publicly tagging Ben because he's probably at home with his wife looking and going, why is Chas tagging me in this thing about Bangor that he wants fixed? Like,
it's okay.
That must happen to you, right? With people just barraging you with like, you're on city council, fix this for me.
Yeah. It happens a lot, and I don't really mind because I think I have enough boundaries that if I am truly home and don't want to be interrupted, I'm still generally pretty good at not engaging with it. I mean, there's definitely times when the kids are in the bath and I'm giving them a few minutes, I'll like look at my phone and just see what's going on, and I hate that because I want to be fully engaged with them at all times when I'm home. But people reach out about stuff all the time, and I generally like it because people, for the most part, 9 out of 10 times, people are pretty respectful. Yeah. Especially with local stuff, I feel like having done it for a while now, a lot of people know me and they know that I'm trying my best, as we all are in the city council, and there's no reason to really be antagonistic towards me because I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try to engage with you positively. Yeah.
But you definitely must get some trolls that are just like, screw you, Ben. Like, have you had to block people on Facebook?
I don't think I've muted some people. Yeah. I don't block people from reaching out to me, but there's a handful of people that I just have on mute so I don't see their updates because it makes me anxious or angry, or it's just, I don't know, not sparking joy, as they say.
The doing what you do is a bureaucracy, and people forget that. Like, you can't just, for instance, the shopping cart thing I was joking about earlier, that took almost a year for something to happen. And people instantly think, well, I've got this problem, I'm going to go email Ben, it should be taken care of next week. And they don't realize there's hoops to jump through and people to talk to and things to do. Yeah. So I'm impressed you can do that. That's probably one of the number one reasons I don't run for public office, is like, I don't want to be answered. I don't want to be at the bar and have Bob and Sue come over and say, Chas, you need to fix the pothole in front of my house. Like,
but when you do get it fixed, and a pothole is a good example because Public Works in Bangor does fill those pretty fast once the request is made. Yeah. I know people right now are pissed about the potholes all over the city, and I get it's been a bad winter and early spring for potholes so far.
I'm glad you said that because, by the way, this is my little list over here. It's called the Book of Chas.
Are you want to talk about potholes?
I'm going to talk about potholes. Well, it's actually more of a conspiracy theory about asphalt. Okay? So this is something that I was talking to my friends about the other day. Obviously, driving through Bangor, most parts of Maine, is a joke that we've got huge potholes. They say the Maine State flowers the caution cone or whatever, right? That joke. So my question, and what we were saying was kind of conspiracy. If you go to other cold climate places like big cities, Montreal, New York, that have a lot of snow and plows and things going, their roads seem to be okay. So is that because they've got bigger budgets and are just replacing the roads more often? Or is it the thickness and quality of the asphalt? Because what the conspiracy was, we said, is we're like, oh, Maine's kind of a small economy state. Like, maybe there's just one dude, Bob, that makes all the asphalt for all the cities. And he just makes really thin, crappy asphalt knowing that it'll fall apart and he'll have to have a job again in 10 years. Yeah. So what's that? Is Bangor's budget just not big enough?
The number one variable is budget. Yeah. Road repairs are expensive. And it's millions of dollars to do. Each summer we throw millions of dollars into these roads. Yeah. And still there's lots of
Well,
problems.
so that's my next question. Why is it so expensive? At this day and age, why don't we have technology that can just lay a road?
Yeah, I don't know.
And like, is asphalt really that expensive to make? Is it is it like full of diamonds? Like, why is it millions?
No, I don't know. It's the groundwork, it's the material itself, it's the labor. It's all expensive. And the city also had probably a 8 to 10 year period in the mid 2000s that they did a lot of deferred maintenance where they weren't, because the budget was bad back then too, so they weren't putting money in, and when you defer maintenance like that, it catches up with you.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to do what maintenance is necessary now, but also catch up on what was not done in the past.
Yeah.
So, and it's budgetary. I mean, I could talk for hours with you about municipal budgets, and everybody would turn off the podcast because it's so boring. But there's just not a lot of funding mechanisms for these things.
Are there any alternatives to it? Because I know some Scandinavian countries now are looking at putting solar even in the roads, which seems like a crazy expense, but will pay out long term. But or different materials. I know down south they do a lot of concrete, which I guess we can't do concrete so much up here because of the frost heaves or breaks and whatnot. But are we just screwed because of where we are geographically? Like Maine's just always going to have crap roads.
We're starting to play around downtown a little bit with heated sidewalks, which sounds pretty elaborate. Cool. Yeah, but it's really sort of simple. It's just flowing warm water underneath the sidewalk that keeps it warm.
We couldn't do that to roads, though.
Probably not. No, because you need a really strong utility system to be able to warm it throughout. But
it would be too costly.
It's dollars though. It's federal DOT dollars and state dollars have really dried up. So municipalities, we have one funding mechanism, which is really property taxes, and we don't have a broad or deep enough tax base to pay for everything that we need to do. So that's the answer. It's dollars.
So you heard it here first from Ben. Maine's roads are going to suck for the next 100 years
until we figure out better funding mechanisms. And I don't know, like, where all the toll money goes, for example. Like, the tolls seem to go up every few years on the highway. And I would love to see a little bit more of that money spread around the state, because the interstates don't get potholes in them the same way. I mean, every once in a while, but
I've always wondered about that. When I lived in New York, some of those bridges I accidentally went across with a band that had a truck and a trailer. So it's like $15 for the truck and then another $15 for the trailer each way. So it ended up being like $30 of fees to go across the bridge. And I started adding it up and like looked up stats of how many millions went across that bridge per day. And it was like, wow, they've got that much money coming in, but somehow the MTA is always complaining they don't have funds. So I wonder if the similar thing here is that like they're like, oh, we need money over here and over here. I'm not saying that there's fraud or anything weird like that. We have to wonder, where's the money going? How can we not be paving and fixing?
Yeah, then you got to prioritize. I mean, there's roads in rural Maine that how many cars do they get a day? Maybe 40 cars a day that are junk, and the cost to fix them is really astronomically high. I don't know. It's tough. It's just not enough dollars to do everything. Hey, but to get the dollars, you either have to add tolls in, or raise income taxes, or raise sales tax and property tax.
I vote for no raise in income tax.
Nobody wants higher taxes. Nobody. But
that's the rub of it, right?
Everybody wants the services. You can't have it both ways. Until you figure out some really creative solutions. But my solution is always the federal and state levels of government.
Let's make Mexico pay for it. That seems to be working, right? In our federal government. I don't know if you remember this, but like 5 years ago, I tagged you in a post, maybe even longer ago now, but about a indoor water park. Do you remember that? So I kind of want to go. Obviously, that's pie in the sky. That'd be like a $50 million or $150 million budget to do something like that. I think we were talking about putting something over near like the Bass Park parking area. It was as the casino was coming up and the new hotels and everything over there. Do you think something like that could ever be possible in the city of Bangor? Because you look at other cold climate places. New Hampshire has one. I think Quebec or Montreal have them right outside the city. So what do you think about that?
Actually, we keep seeing this commercial on TV, my wife and I, and I forget where it is in Massachusetts, but it's basically an indoor water park. And it's this great wintertime destination for families and with kids. And it I don't know. Why not?
How would we even begin? Because like I said, I tagged you as a joke, like thinking that, Ben will find somebody. But how do you do that? Because if you even think about like Amazon, them going around shopping to cities, like would you go find an amusement park company and say, hey, like would you consider coming to Bangor? How does that begin?
One of the things I've learned on city council, unfortunately, is that our tools for attracting businesses are somewhat limited. We're boxed in a little bit by state laws on what we can offer for tax incentives, for example. There's really specific ways you have to do it. So I remember thinking, well, why don't we just give away the farm basically to get a good company here to employ several hundred people. And we're involved with economic development initiatives like that all the time, but it hasn't been quite as clear cut as I thought it might be to say, we want to attract X business, let's give them Y incentive to come here.
Yeah. I
mean, something like a water park, I think that you'd have to make a marketing push and you'd have to think creatively and maybe find a city space. I mean, Bangor still has some rural undeveloped areas of it, but if you want to be downtown, if you want to be on the waterfront, there's not that much real estate left for things like that. People often want to do creative things downtown, and it's just tough. A lot of the buildings are pretty old and they require a lot of work to be rehabbed.
I selfishly brought up the indoor water park because, as you know, it's March today, March 1st.
Yeah.
March in Maine can be tough. I know you love living here. I love living in Maine too. We chose to be here, but it gets tough. So I want something warm. So that's why I'm doing the pie in the sky, tossing this out in this podcast. If you're listening, if you got $150 million, please build Chas and Ben a place to go float in a lazy river in March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lazy river all the way around the community. People always talk about better linkages between Bangor and Brewer too. Yeah. I don't know if you could have like a pipeline with the lazy river.
I'm glad you said that. I was thinking this a second ago about things that cities have done. So I can't remember if it was in Brooklyn or Queens or maybe New Jersey or where, but somewhere on one of the rivers on either side of Manhattan, they built a barge pool that they stuck in the river. So people could go and have a martini and swim around and feel like they're swimming in the river, but it was just a big floating pool.
Yeah.
So once again, pie in the sky for Bangor to get a big floating pool, but that would be pretty awesome if you could swim in the Penobscot but not be in the Penobscot.
Yeah, on a concert night, a warm summer night.
Yeah, it's like a few feet taller than the actual water is, but you feel like you're in the water, and it's obviously chlorine and safe. But
but I mean, it's not a water park, but the Cross Insurance Center has been a great success for Bangor, and that was built and constructed basically in the throes of the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, 2010. Yeah, and even that, there were some elements that were in the original plan, like a sky bridge across Main Street from the Cross Center to the casino that actually got costed out in the last stages of it. Yeah. So it wasn't quite everything that people wanted and planned on, but it's a great building, and it was done by the city in a really tough economic time. This was before my time on the council, but I think it speaks to Bangor in general. People are creative, they're motivated, there's this inherent optimism in Bangor to get things done. I think the Cross Center is a good example of that. The waterfront, the casino, the whole Main Street area. Yeah. So
the what has happened in the past decade is crazy. Do you remember? I remember when I first came back from LA, I think, and I was bartending at the Wigan Courier. It was the only restaurant. Actually, I take that back. I think the Pakistani place was open, and maybe one other, but it was the only place. Yeah. And now we have 15 restaurants downtown. Yeah. That happened in a decade.
When I was in Boston, it would have been probably 06, 07, first part of 08. I remember hearing that Patty Murphy's was going to open in downtown Bangor because I used to always read the BGN online, even though I was in Massachusetts. And I remember thinking, that's really depressing, the idea of going into downtown to drink. that was the perspective back then. Like, you'd go out to the mall area, or you'd go even out by Ground Round, and the idea of going downtown to drink.
Yeah, downtown was a bunch of empty buildings.
Yeah, it was sad to think about doing that.
Which is really ironic now, because I don't know how recent this article was, but I saw an article about the mall being auctioned off. Mm-hmm. That happened recently, right?
Yeah.
A few weeks ago or something?
Just recently, yeah.
Yeah, for $16 million, I guess. So I don't know who bought it or what they're going to do, but it's just funny to see that. And it's not just Bangor. It's all around the country that the downtown revitalization thing is happening. But I'm so glad it's happening. It's incredible.
Yeah, it wasn't by accident in Bangor either. It was pretty deliberate steps to rehab specific buildings, like where the Discovery Museum is and where the University of Maine Art Museum is and the building that Epic Sports is in. Yeah. The city pretty proactively tried to rehab those buildings to get viable things in there, and those have all been good cornerstones for downtown. And now there's all these residential units downtown on some of the upper floors. Yep. Even when I first got involved with City Council in 2011, 2012, there was a ton of vacancy downtown, especially in the upper floors on things. And there's still definitely some buildings here and there around that don't have much going on with them. But for the most part, a lot of the upper floors are occupied now. Some offices, there's artists doing creative things downtown, and then there's just this real push to have more residential downtown. That's been super good.
I hate to say it selfishly bums me out because I wanted to buy some of those buildings, which I don't have the money for, and now they're all getting bought up, which is great. We're having the renaissance that Portland had about 15, 20 years ago. So it's about time. And it's great we have mutual friends that are buying buildings and doing things, making like luxury apartments. And that whole block on Exchange Street now with Josh Gass doing Bangor Arts Exchange, and which is amazing. I don't even know anybody that's watching this. If you didn't know, we have a live music venue in downtown Bangor, Bangor Arts Exchange, and other things. They do other events as well. But once again, you picture downtown Bangor 10 years ago, like you said, you'd be like, do I want to go down there? What?
I think Spose is there this weekend, and that small to mid-size music venue was a missing piece for a long time, and that's a good example of people just making it happen. And the city incentivized it over time and supported development and growth, but it was really private entrepreneurs and people that wanted to make something like that happen. It's been great. And some of that spillover, I think, is going to positively impact the surrounding neighborhoods, like this 1st to 3rd Street neighborhood I'm super high on, because there's going to be some of that spillover from Main Street, from downtown, in terms of residential, but people... Not everybody wants to have a car this day and age, and they still want to be close to things. So this is a great neighborhood to walk to all these places. So I think it's a good spot.
When I have tenants that are coming to check out apartments, that's the number one thing they're excited about. It's like, I can walk from one block to the waterfront concerts, to the restaurants, to everything. And this was what used to be considered the ghetto of Bangor, was 1st through 3rd Street. Now it's a coveted area.
There's a lot of Airbnb things happening in this neighborhood for just let alone on concert nights. But I'm super high in this neighborhood, and with Bangor Savings Bank has this beautiful new campus there. They're going to employ several hundred people within a stone's throw of this neighborhood.
That building's incredible.
It's going to be super positive, I think.
I don't know if you'll remember this either. It was around the same time that I was messaging you about, or tagging you about the indoor water park. The University of Maine has an acting department and kind of, I would say film, but it's more new media. And I was talking to you about having a satellite school in downtown Bangor with dorms for either UMaine and or Hudson. And I think what derailed the conversation at the time was right when UMaine had just built like a $50 or $60 million brand new media film, television stuff up on campus. So like they were kind of open to it, and they're like, oh, that seems neat, but guess what? We just got this grant and we're going to do it here. So that kind of fell through. So now that the TV portion of UMaine's gone, do you think you could get like the acting portion of UMaine, or somebody awesome. to put some dorms downtown and have the cafes filled with young students and arts and things like that, or even the Rockport or Rockland film workshops, that sort of thing. Do you think that's a possibility in downtown Bangor?
Yeah, because there's buses and shuttles that go right back and forth between downtown and campus too. It'd be great. Unfortunately, the trend has sort of been, like you're saying, that University of Maine is doing more and more on campus.
Yeah, they have a land grant, right? So that's what it is. That's federal money coming in. Yeah. So they don't have any incentive to be in Bangor.
Yeah, and just their culture is on campus in Orono and around the different campuses. The one exception to that is that UMaine has done their basketball games at the Cross Center, which I think has been really positive for them, and it's been a good way to link the communities and get more Bangor people associated with the University of Maine through that one thing. But the University of Maine had office presence downtown for a while.
It was the building above Epic Sports.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And unfortunately, they pulled that all back to campus as well.
Yeah. Why was that?
I think the contraction is probably budget related.
I think it's an out-of-state company that owns that building, right? That leases it. Because at one point I called them, they put a sign that it was either for lease or sale, and I called them, and not to badmouth this company, I don't even know who the company is, but it was an astronomical price. And I was like, oh, they must be out of state, they don't realize what rents are downtown, so maybe they got priced out.
Well, I think they probably get priced out a little bit, but it's the same thing. I mean, we're talking about the roads and not enough dollars. There's not enough dollars for the University of Maine because they're a public institution to do everything they want to do. I think it would be incredibly positive for them or Hudson to get more involved with downtown Bangor. It'd be a good recruitment tool because students, if you're coming from out of state and driving all the way to Orono, it is a long drive north of Portland to get there. And you go through Bangor and you're still going. If you could be in a more urban center, I think that would be a good draw for students, faculty, staff.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like, oh, move Orono to downtown Bangor. I just mean a small portion, just some. Because at one point when I went to school for 1 year at UMaine, and I was driving down to like, I want to say Bucksport or somewhere like that for a second. I don't remember now, so long ago. I'm dating myself here. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's interesting. Why isn't this on campus? So they do that, and they have like UMaine Augusta, Farmington. They have other satellite things. So I was just hoping there could be some program they could move, but so your vibe is you think it's a money thing and they're not interested.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you know more of the bureaucracy up at Orono than I do.
They have a new president up there. I've met her a couple times, and she said to me, and I've said back to her, we'd love to build this relationship and have a better connection between Orono and Bangor, and whether it's professors doing research somehow with a Bangor connection, or the university getting more involved with the Cross Center or different things downtown. Yeah. You're saying all the right things, but you're right. An actual program of some kind would be.
It doesn't have to be acting. I keep saying arts, but it could be a math class.
Or residential dorms would be great.
Dorms would be cool. Yeah, if they kept all their classes up in Orono, but they had people, because that's mostly what it was. Is when I first moved back from LA, I was downtown. It's like there's nobody here. Not only nobody here, but nobody my age. If there was somebody, it'd be Bob and Sue in their 60s having a coffee. So that leads me to my next question. Those are my two things: a indoor water park, which is pie in the sky, and some sort of school downtown. So you've been mayor, you're on city council, you deal with this on a daily basis. They talk about it on the radio shows, TV all the time. Maine's brain drain. Ben, how do we stop people from leaving? Because you and I came back. I'm not going to call myself successful, but you're a very successful guy, in my opinion. How do you get people like yourself to want to return to Maine? You wanted to raise a family, but not everybody does. So what incentives can we do? We're not going to get an Amazon up here. Theoretically, I'd love it if we could, but something like that's not going to happen. So what in your mind can we do on the smaller scale to get people to stay and or come back after they've left?
Well, when I did move back, I did want to settle down in this area, but I didn't even know my now wife at the time. And one of the blocks for me to thinking about making the move from Boston back to Bangor was the idea of what is there to do, and also the single scene too. And I was single before I met my now wife. I was single in Bangor for only a few months or so, but I remember thinking already at that point, the single scene for somebody in their late 20s or early 30s, and presumably older, is hard.
Was that before like Tinder and online dating stuff like that?
Well, online dating was around, but I wasn't into that. But online dating in Bangor, I think, would be hard because everybody knows each other. You're going to see the same people out over and over again. And people pair off really young around here. So I remember being out at bars and people had been married and kids and sometimes divorced by the age of like 25 or 26. And in Boston, people don't even really start dating super seriously until they're 30 or older. But fortunately, I met Mallory and it all worked out fine. But it was a leap. Job is, of course, probably the number one variable. I was working as a financial advisor and doing retirement planning, which fortunately you can do just about anywhere. You don't need to be in Boston or New York or one of the big financial centers. You can do it in Bangor. There's lots of people that would like to move back if they could, but they don't have a job in a field like that. Like if you want to work for NASA, just as an example, I don't know why I thought of NASA, but if you want to do that, you can't do it in Bangor very easily. So job is one, but also lifestyle. I think Bangor has done well with that over the last 10 to 15 years to make this a place where people can feel confident that I'm going to be entertained, I'm going to be stimulated, there's things to do, I'm going to be fulfilled here, whether it's artistically, culturally, just being able to go out to, whether it's Nocturnum or Blaze or Living Central or OBC or whatever it is, and know that you're going to have a good time out. Those types of things that Bangor's done a pretty good job of incentivizing business owners and supporting people to create those things. Jobs is still the number one thing, and we still got a ways to go on that. Bangor's kind of its own little pocket relative to the rural area around us, where you can work for the hospital, you can work for a bank, you can work for a law firm, you can work.
Doctor, lawyer, banker. I saw a meme that said that. It said living in Maine and you're not a doctor, lawyer, banker, good luck.
There's truth to that for sure. But in the brain drain thing, first of all, I'm not crazy about the brain drain term. I know everybody uses it.
I use it.
It implies everybody's smart left though, and I know there's a lot of good people around here that are smart that have stayed or come back, but this has also been a problem forever. And the first time I was mayor, you do a little speech when you get chosen as mayor, and I found Joshua Chamberlain's inaugural address from when he was governor in like the 1870s or 1880s after the Civil War. He was talking about the concept of the brain drain even back then. And he was saying that Maine needs to be known as a great place to stay instead of a great place to be from.
Yeah.
And he called Maine, I think he called it a nursery of civilization. Like people are born here and cultivated here, and then they go out to serve the world in some capacity. And I don't know. So part of it's the geography. Part of it's not having real urban centers other than Portland. Yeah. And certainly parts of Bangor, but it's not really a true metropolitan area like one of these other big cities. If you're growing up and you want to live in a big city, you're probably not going to stay in Maine.
Yeah.
But if we emphasize the recreational opportunities, I mean, Maine's got some of the most beautiful places in the world. As you know, you travel a lot. People come from all over the world to Maine. And it's right in our backyard. There's clean water, there's clean air.
Yeah, Poland Spring.
Yeah. Tons of stuff to do. I don't know. We got to promote that and be proud of it.
I think people forget that because even whether you live in Bangor or really any city in the country, a lot of time people don't leave their hometown. And so even Bangor, like sometimes I'll forget that the Bangor Forest exists with the bog walk and all that stuff. Or in literally 15 minutes from my door, I can be at a beautiful lake, Lucerne, like on a jet ski. And so I think when people just get in the daily grind of like going there 9 to 5 in Bangor and it's March and it's cold and they're like, oh God, this is horrible. But when you're in New York City, it's also cold and horrible, and you're freezing as you run to the subway, and you're working the 9 to 5 to pay for your $3,000 a month apartment, and you don't get to do those things. So sure, there's more like concerts and art and culture and I hate to say it, more attractive dating options, but it's a trade-off. And I think it's also one of those things that I think changes over time. At least for me, like I went to LA for 3.5 years, New York 3.5 years, and then finally I was like, okay, I'm older now. I want to be back in Maine and relax. And you wanted to raise a family. So I think there's a fair amount of that. But the problem is when people originally leave, they then get their husbands and wives in the cities and they end up having a life there and staying. And I don't know because we're not going to talk an Amazon into opening shop here. Which has crossed my mind before about like Facebook and those big companies with their server farms. I'm like, they're in Nevada paying huge money to cool all these servers. If they came to Maine, they could just leave the doors open. They'd be cold and they'd be fine. And like pennies on the dollar land in northern Maine, they could build enormous server farms right next to lakes and have build a whole community there. But that's not likely to happen. So it's tough because I think the last time Bangor had a population increase was when we had the military.
Dow Air Force Base.
And that went away, and I think our population dropped by 10,000 people overnight. And so once again, unless there's something magic like the government doing that, I don't know how to increase population. I think the stat that it was a few years ago that the stat started, but it said that Maine's population actually dropped 300. And the following year it dropped 600. So I don't know if that's continued. It was a few years ago I saw that, but if that continues happening, are we screwed for that?
I think Maine was one of only 2 states to have a loss in population by whatever time metric. It was Maine and West Virginia. And the whole system, the economic system, the social service system, it all depends on having new people come in. And if your population is stagnant, and we all know Maine's rural population especially is older, not always... I mean, I don't want to disparage people that live in rural areas, but there's health issues, there's issues with poverty, there's social service needs, but not the dollars to go along with them. And I don't know. We need, it's going to sound like I'm like queuing myself up to run for governor here or something, but we need like a relentless focus on this. And I think in the LePage years, one of the responsibilities of the governor is to be a cheerleader for your state and to be super positive and promote it. And I try to do that with Bangor. And I think Janet Mills has already changed the tone and tenor a lot. You got to be super positive about your state.
Don't know whichever way you lean, you still need to be positive. When you have negative, angry politics, it's not good for anybody.
Because that compounds on itself. Just as on the opposite side, being positive builds more optimism, I think. And there are plenty of good things to talk about, and we've talked about some of them here just in Bangor, but just with the universities, there's lots of entrepreneurial things going on at the universities, at the University of Maine, that you wouldn't think that there's businesses being spun out of an academic setting, but there are. And I think Bangor's population will grow. Unfortunately, some of it might be to the detriment of the rural areas, because if you're growing up in, Dover, Milo, Millinocket, East Millinocket, Lincoln, what are you going to do in those areas really long term? Some of those folks are coming to Bangor, which our population might swell a little bit from that. But I don't know. Long term, I worry a lot about the rural areas in Maine and Bangor too. But it would have always been kind of our own little pocket, and I think Bangor's going to be okay.
And so you might not have an answer for this because once again, I don't tell any of my guests questions they're going to get. They just show up and I talk to them about random things. But do you have any way you can say somebody's considering moving back or opening a business. Like one of my tenants actually is doing something called Tip Whip, so I'll plug his thing. It's a thing kind of like Uber. He's had Bangor Savings Bank invest with him, and he's trying to do it with the Orono kids, and it's like Uber for college kids. Go look it up, Tip Whip. But do you have any programs or incentives you can mention to people? Like I know there's a business incubator sort of thing up on the new Maine campus, but like, let's say you're a young single woman. Do you know of any city grants or things people can apply for? And once again, you might not know anything, but if you do, tell people about it.
Well, the University of Maine one is good. The Innovation Center up there. We have a makerspace in Bangor that, it's out by the airport. There's a shared office space. There's Covort in downtown Bangor now that's shared working spaces. All those pieces are sort of part of this entrepreneurial infrastructure that we're sort of trying to develop, but it's got a ways to go. In terms of grants, the city does things like facade grants for downtown businesses. There's some development grants in some of the residential neighborhoods, the low and moderate income neighborhoods. Yep. But we haven't been able to roll out anything quite as effective as saying, move here and you will get this portion of your student loans paid back, or you will get this.
I had heard there might be something like that coming.
The
for
state's
Maine?
Working on that. Which would be great. It would be great. I mean, anytime you incentivize something, you don't want to.
It was for young couples, right?
I don't know exactly.
A young married couple moved back. I think it wasn't like they required you to have kids, but it was something like that. Like, come work here for a few years.
Come make babies. We'll pay you.
Well, that's part of the issue too. It's not only that we're shrinking, but that nobody's having kids. So it's not that people are moving away, but nobody's repopulating.
Well, back in the day, you'd have families of 10 or 11 kids, and now 1 or 2 is the norm.
Yeah, I come from a family of 4 kids, and I haven't had any yet. Yeah. I mean, granted, I'd like to someday.
You're the problem.
I know, I am. I wanted to gallivant around and travel and do my thing. Yeah. Guilty as charged.
Well, there's always time, but. No, I mean, what we try to emphasize is just what a great place to live this is, and the work-life balance. And I mean, speaking for me personally, when I came back, I ran for city council within 6 months of moving back and got elected strongly, and there was nobody telling me not to do that, really.
I was really proud of you, by the way, when you did that.
Thanks.
I think most people, it crosses their mind, like, oh, I could be a politician to run. So I'd always like, oh, I could do that. And I watched you do it, and I was like, oh, man, like, I don't know if I could do that. So
well,
I was really, really proud that you did that.
Yeah, but if I were in Boston and I wanted to be on the Boston City Council, it would probably be 2 decades of winding my way through some bureaucracy. Oh, yeah. Whereas in Bangor, you can get involved, and you can start a concert company, or you can start a business or a restaurant or a food truck or anything like that.
That is the great part about where we're at right now, with just the tip of our renaissance starting. If you do want to start a company, Bangor's prime for it right now. Like even my brother's living in Portland, and he's shopping for condos and stuff. He's like, I can't afford anything here. And Portland is only twice our size, and I'd say probably 20 years ahead of us in growth.
And people will root for your success here. When I moved back, people really wanted me to be here and wanted me to be successful, and helped me in countless ways to be successful.
It's funny you say that, because a lot of people have said the opposite. They'll be like, oh, when I feel back in Bangor, small town mentality, where they want to see you fail. But the people that say that to me are always ones that have left and are gone. I'm like, well, you're not here doing it, so maybe that's why they're giving you crap, is because you didn't follow through.
And maybe I don't know, looking at this in a rosy way, looking back, there were definitely people. Actually, there were people telling me to slow down, wait your turn. Yeah, but. I don't know. I don't remember those
everybody does that, though, because people, like we're talking about the peer group mentality, comparing yourself to others through social media. If somebody's sitting at home watching Netflix and they see Ben becoming mayor, they might have a little animosity towards you, like, because it makes them feel bad about themselves. So a lot of the time, that negative small town talk, I think, is people really just being jealous. Yeah, for luck.
I'm sure there's some of that, and hopefully, me being involved has inspired some other people to similarly get involved. But
oh no, definitely. People. That's, like I said, that is the one good thing about comparing yourself to others, is it motivates you. Yeah, you have motivated me numerous times, Ben.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
very impressed with your accolades. Yeah.
And you now, I mean, I'd be at a meeting and I'd rather be like at home watching Netflix too a lot of times. So there's 2 sides to that one. But
yeah. Well, once again, as I said, that Jan and I were talking about that exact thing. I think we mentioned Mark Wahlberg, and how he gets up at 3 or 4 in the morning or something. But ultimately, like, there are those people, type A, that want to work hard and be crazy, but you don't need to do that. If you want to watch Netflix for a few hours, like Ben, do you admit you watch Netflix for a few hours?
All the time.
There you have it, guys.
Every night.
You can be successful like Ben and still take the time to watch Netflix.
And your idea of success might be not waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and that's perfectly fine. That's actually really healthy, I think. But
so we've got 4 minutes left on here, and let me see if I can pull it up. We got some questions from the interwebs from people. See if I can go to my homepage.
They're probably
here.
about potholes.
I think one of them was actually. Yes, here we are. So, so Andrew Brookings Savage says, was the West Side Little League's 1996 Bangor Hydro squad the best team ever
Bangor
assembled?
Hydro, yeah. Coach Dave Mansfield. Yeah, Andy Savage. It's still funny to hear him called Andrew, because it was always Andy growing up.
I'm pronouncing his full face.
Yeah, Casey Saviello was on that team. Josh Johnson was on that team. That was fun. Yeah. It's just like perfect example of like great small town.
I was gonna say the good old like riding your bikes, fresh cut grass.
It's like Happy Days 1950s style small town stuff. And this was the town we grew up in the 90s. Yeah.
So did you hear that? There you go. You answer your question. How about that? I'm eventually going to get to call-ins, but I knew nobody cares enough about the show yet to call in, so I did these pre-packaged questions.
Yeah.
So Frankie Chappa wants me to ask you about your philanthropy in high school, organizing statewide clothing drive, and yes, that's it. So tell us about that.
That's actually a good example. Like I was saying earlier, when I moved back to Bangor, there were very few people blocking the way of trying to do things. I think in high school, I learned at some point that if I wanted to organize an activity or participate in something or drive a cause forward, there were no roadblocks. Yeah, just do it. If anything, people, teachers, faculty, staff, family members, neighbors would actually lift you up to support you. Yeah. I think a lot of people, if they have a goal or they see, I wish I could be on city council or something, got to start somewhere and got to try. And I mean, people will bring different skill sets and organizational styles to it, but if you want to do something, there's not always things in the way to do it. Yeah, you can just do it. And high school kind of taught me that in some ways. With the activity she's talking about was a clothing drive we did that morphed into this huge thing of 13, 14, 15 different schools in the area all doing clothing drives simultaneously, and we raised tens of thousands of articles of clothing that was distributed, some in Maine, a lot in Central America, and ended up being a really key part of my high school career, I think. And I mean, I didn't do it as a resume builder, but I think it was probably the organization of that was probably something that helped me in pursuing further things. Not to mention the skills learned from organizing activities when you're young, but I don't know. High school was good in that way that if you wanted to do something, you could generally just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, it's funny, when we did the first Kabang Festival on the waterfront, we went to City Hall and we're like, oh my God, what are they going to require of us? And it was this little old lady named Rose, and she goes, oh, you just fill out this permit here and it's $35. Yeah. And I looked at Tim and I was like, okay, so we have the waterfront first ticketed event for a huge concert, and we just paid $35. It's very different now, obviously. Fast forward 10 years. But it just goes to show you sometimes the barriers to entry aren't what you think they are.
Exactly.
And you can just go and do it. And also, I want to clarify this, because in past interviews I have always claimed that Kabang was the first ticketed event at the waterfront. And my friend John Leonard, who's Stephen King's nephew, pointed out at one point Stephen King, I think 15 years ago, I don't remember which band it was, but he had a ticketed event on the waterfront where he put up like orange snow fencing. It was a very small thing. Nice. I think like 1,000 people came. Yeah. But I got to give credit where credit is due. Stephen King beat me to it. Yeah. And before that, there's always the folk festival that's free. Yeah. So we always claim we were the first ticketed event.
Yeah. Every time the folk festival gets named as the first major event on the waterfront, there's these Shakespeare in the Park people that come out too, and they always claim that.
So I'm saying, I don't want to claim things because I'm like, maybe I wasn't the first, and then of course found out I wasn't. So. Yeah. But I like that you said that you should just do it, Nike style.
Yeah. No, the phrase you use, barriers to entry, are sometimes non-existent. That's exactly right. Yeah, the barriers are mental or I don't know, not logistical, and certainly not personal.
Yeah, you don't know until you ask.
Right.
Let me see if there's anything else on here. The pothole one, which we've already kind of addressed. You know what? We'll end on this note. I just saw my dad had posted one. So my dad wants to know, where do you see your political future going? Because I know you joked earlier, saying, I sound like I'm running for governor. I've been giving you a hard time for years now, saying, no, you're going to be governor, Ben. Is that something in your horizon? You want to go to that level, or do you like it more local?
Well, there's seasons in life for these types of things, I think. And had you asked me this exact question 5 or 6 years ago, I 100% sure I would have given a different answer, because 5 or 6 years ago, I was thinking more along that path of thinking about running, whether it was for governor or something else, or trying to get to Augusta or DC at some point. And I'm sort of in a trough with that at the moment because I've got a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 3-month-old at home, and all my energy is in them.
Yeah.
I love my day job. I work at a bank, First National Bank, in my day job. I really am fulfilled by that, and I love local city council.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm just at a trough in it. And honestly, as bad as everything is in Washington, D.C., and to a lesser degree, Augusta, it sort of just made me disengage with politics a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that I haven't had this reaction.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
A lot of people right now, and I admire these people, they're more motivated than ever to get involved with stuff because of how bleak things are, especially in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
It's made me disengage.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing a ton locally, and my focus is with my family.
Yeah.
I think probably the itch will come back again at some point.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, the political discourse right now is not totally my style. I'm sort of moderate. I'm sort of...
You're not an angry jerk.
It's red meat on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like right now the political spectrum, 10 to 20% of people on both sides are as fired up as they've ever been.
Yeah.
And everybody else is varying levels of disengagement with it.
Yeah.
And I'm
I've checked out. Sometimes I stop watching the news and like, well, I know it's just going to be 24-hour Trump. Like, I don't care anymore.
That's me too. That's me too. Yeah. And I think the itch might come back at some point, but I also don't see the partisanship and the crazy language and in the diversion of policy. The Republicans are going further to the right. Democrats are going further to the left.
Yeah.
I'm not at home in either political party, either camp, really.
Yeah. Same thing for me. I share things in both that I like. And it's like...
And that's just not in vogue right now in politics.
No.
The pendulum swings back, though. So you never know. But before I had kids, I would have given a different answer. And God's honest truth, I'm not itching for it right now.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I saw something in my newsfeed the other day that said for parents, when they have the child, it takes 6 years after that child is born before their sleep schedule returns to normal.
Yeah.
So let's give it, 15 years to see where you're at. Once your kids are like high school age and stuff, maybe you'll get that itch again. Because I have the same thing for me. I've gone through ups and downs of like, I'm going to get into politics, and then I'm like, no way.
Well, you should think about running for city council.
If your seat opens up, I'll run for yours. How about that?
Mine's going to open up in 2020. I'm termed out in 2020. So.
Oh man, I can't believe we're getting old that you've termed out. Jeez.
I know.
How did this happen to us?
Yeah, but we could take 10 years off from politics, and I could run for something higher up and still be young in politics.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the number's weird. But, right now I'm just happy to be doing my thing locally, and I try to get like creative outlet, whether it's conversations like this or just social media stuff. And I don't know. I'm doing fine with it, but...
Cool.
I would definitely be following the 2020 elections just out of curiosity and the political nerd in me, but no plans myself to run for anything anytime soon.
Well, you heard it here first. He's running for governor. Well, thanks so much, Ben, for coming on. We've now reached our hour, a few minutes over. I'll edit this all together, put it out there for the people of the world to see, and hopefully they'll like what we talked about.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yep, cool. Peace out.